Mom?
Uncle Wes, why can't you stay?
They need me to help them try and stop this. We're the only family we have left.
We got this.
Cody! What are you doing, man? You should kill somebody.
We are all soldiers now.
Tonight, when that sun sets, it's gonna be every man for himself.
We have a 9-hour window to test and report our findings. We hope to see if this mutation can be blocked.
Let's go over the rules.
Don't open the door for anyone.
Don't hesitate for a second.
Hoorah! Hoorah! Hoorah!
Good luck tonight.
Canopy retraction commencing.
No more guns, no more guards. Those things are coming for us.
I'm here.
Hey! Bite me!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Fresh Cuts, or the latest episode, whatever we want to call it. It's Mike. Also with me, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, lycanthropes. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How the hell you doing, Mike?
Doing well. I think most of my Christmas shopping is done, and I just survived a major update to my laptop. So, good. Pretty chill on a Sunday otherwise. Also with us, it's Dawn and Nelly. What's up, Dawn?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
Okay, so this episode, we actually got a December theatrical release, one that I was not really familiar with until at some point, I think last week when Venom brought it up. It's a movie called Werewolves. And I happened to, actually, there's like a couple releases this week, and I guess 3 if you count Y2K as a horror, but Night Bitch, which I did not get screenings of, but Werewolves I did, and it's an action horror movie, and the synopsis is as follows. 2 scientists try to stop a mutation that turns people into werewolves after being touched by a supermoon the year before. All right, so yeah, some supermoon event basically, like, I guess, morphed people into werewolves somehow. Anyways, yeah, so we're gonna start with our general thoughts on Werewolves. Venom, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, when I heard about the movie, it sounded very similar to like an Aliens, where it was going to be a creature feature mixed up with an action movie, kind of leaning towards the action, which, you know, I'm usually on board for. And Werewolves did kind of turn into that. I mean, at least at its core, you know, it is a creature feature with some hardcore action tropes and, you know, lots of action set pieces and things like that. Like, I don't think anybody would really call too many of the set pieces in here horror set pieces. Yes, werewolves are involved in almost all of them, but it just kind of the way that the movie plays out it's barely a horror film. Oh, and just to let you know, Mike, Night Bitch is not a horror film in any way, shape, or form. It's not even a discussion. It is not a horror film. But that's a discussion for another show. So just wanted to throw that out there in case any of our listeners get confused with Mike's comment. Yeah, Night Bitch, not remotely horror at all. It is solidly a dark comedy with dramatic elements. But like I said, that's a discussion for another podcast. Werewolves, I can sum up Werewolves in one sentence. This is a movie with shit. I had the sentence in my head and I lost it. Basically, the movie writes, let me put it this way. The first act of this movie writes a check that the rest of this movie can't cash. Now, obviously, from the synopsis, you see that there was a supermoon the year before the events of this movie start. And during that supermoon, over a billion people, billion with a B, over a billion people turned into a werewolf because basically they tried to give us a scientific explanation, but it falls so flat that it's almost laughable that, basically just the rays of this supermoon are so powerful that it'll turn anyone into a werewolf who gets, drenched in this light. So it's not something that's a curse that's passed on, that you have to be bitten, literally any human being. And like I said, they try to give a scientific explanation in the movie, but the science is so laughable that, you kind of just end up ignoring it. But yeah, when you have a movie with that kind of setup, because I'm on board. For the first act, I'm totally on board. I'm thinking, awesome, we're going to get some big set pieces with like hundreds of werewolves, attacking a group of people or whatever. We're going to get set pieces all over the world because this isn't an isolated incident. This is literally happening all over the world. Obviously, at different times because of the time zones, duh. But as soon as the moon comes out on this particular day in whatever time zone you're in, if you're outside and any of that moonlight hits you, yes, you become a werewolf. So like I said, the first act of this movie, I'm expecting there to be carnage like we've never seen before. We're talking about, a billion werewolves in the world. And obviously on this year two, this movie takes place during year 2. So it's the second year of this supermoon. So at least in this particular instance, people are prepared for it. We see people setting up their houses, putting up like defensive perimeters around their house, covering all their windows so that no moonlight could possibly get in, stuff like that. It definitely would have been interesting to see the movie of the original supermoon when they weren't prepared for it. But like I said, when you have a setup like this, you're expecting certain set pieces. You're expecting certain level of carnage. And unfortunately, this movie doesn't really provide it. Yes, there's some gory kills here and there. I think one guy gets his face bitten off and another girl gets like her whole front of her torso torn off. There's a halfway decent decapitation in the film, blah, blah, blah. So, there is some gore, but it's just not at the level that you're expecting when you're talking about millions upon millions, if not over a billion werewolves running around all over the world. At no point in this film do we see more than 5 or 6 werewolves at a time. Do you know how fucking disappointing that is? I'm expecting to see big hordes of werewolves, and nope. With 5 or 6 is the most that we get. Even at one point when our main werewolf, the main werewolf that we're kind of following throughout the film, when he makes a call to arms, again, I'm expecting, oh boy, here we go. Dozens of werewolves are going to show up. No, 4 fucking werewolves show up to answer this guy's rallying call. And it just, to me, it's so disappointing. This movie, it had the potential to be great, but they just, I don't know, they neutered it. I don't know if the movie is rated R, so it's not like they really had to worry about a PG-13 rating, but I don't know if the studio kind of limited what the director Stephen Miller could put in this movie, but man, it is just what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, like I said, just expectations that are not fulfilled, set pieces that we think we're going to get that we don't get, and then to put a cherry on top of the shit sundae that is Werewolves, we get the most convenient, happy fucking ending I've ever seen in a werewolf movie. My friends, I can't iterate enough how much I fucking hate the ending of this movie. Fuck you with your happy endings, really. In a world where 1 billion fucking people turn into a werewolf, we get a happy ending at the end of this second supermoon. Go fuck yourself. Yeah, so this movie, like I said, it had potential. The first act, I'm on board with. I'm on board with the storyline. I'm on board with the characters. Not that I really cared about any of them too much throughout the film, but at least for the most part early on, I'm on board. And then we just get that sugar-coated ending where I wanted to puke in the theater. I was so pissed off. Horror movies should not have happy endings. Let me repeat that for the people in the back. Horror movies should not have happy endings. Just because a final girl survives her night with Jason Voorhees doesn't mean that's a happy ending for her. That woman has trauma for the rest of her fucking life. Imagine Ginny after Friday the 13th Part 2. You think she lives a happy life after that? No! She's looking over her shoulder for the rest of her fucking life, worried about Jason potentially finding her. So yeah, when I see horror movies with happy endings, it just absolutely turns me off. So yeah, overall, I'm just going to say Werewolves is a decent concept that it just falls flat around the halfway point, excuse me. All the science that's introduced is just laughable. Their attempt at a cure, a quote-unquote, not even a cure so much as a deterrent, also laughable. It falls apart. The more you watch the movie, the more it falls apart. And then we just get that ridiculous cliche final confrontation, which, by the way, 30 Days of Night did it 1,000 times better than this movie did. I can't really get into why I'm referencing 30 Days of Night, a vampire movie, but the end of 30 Days of Night is almost a carbon copy of this one, except with 30 Days of Night, we get a realistic ending, and with this one, we get this sugar-coated Disney garbage ending. So yeah, I'm just going to say incredibly disappointed with this movie. It could have been so much better. I mean, I'm so disappointed with the movie. I haven't even talked about the werewolf design yet because I don't know that it even needs to be talked about, but I'm sure we'll get to it. Someone will talk about the werewolf design at some point, but yeah, I'm going to leave my general thoughts at that. Just incredibly disappointed with this one. Could have been so much better, but just it lacked. I hate to say it because I sound like a shitty fucking movie critic, but it's a werewolf movie that lacks teeth. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry for the dad joke, folks.
All right, let's throw it on over to Donna Nelly for your thoughts on Werewolves.
Yeah, I probably liked it a little bit more than Venom did, but even still, I do agree that this is a bit of a disappointment from what it could be. I think most of the difference between us is the fact that I'm not really necessarily bothered by the expectations that he wanted, that the movie didn't deliver. I see his point. I do agree that it would have been a lot more enjoyable for this to be a worldwide pandemic that kind of, you see werewolves attacking places, just like, brief little snippets of, attacking werewolves in China or Japan or Australia, Europe, South America, Africa, all over the place. Just kind of, not necessarily doing any kind of anything big, but just kind of even somewhat similar to like Zombieland, like the Zombie Kill of the Week thing. Just like a brief little snippet of like a, werewolf attack in the middle of nowhere that you're not expecting and nobody knows what's going on. That kind of thing, just to, kind of like hammer home like the global impact of it. But I think for me is that I don't necessarily want to hammer the film for that point, just because I don't think that it not being there is a reason to downplay the movie. It's still a lot of fun. I do like the concept here. I'm okay with it not being a curse. That's always been one of the things that I've never really cared all that much about the original werewolf movies about, where it had to be a curse, that it had to be transferred. The idea of, outside forces just enabling you to become one, I think that's a fine substitute. It's just more, I want them on my screen more often. So I don't necessarily get that put off by it not being a curse. The story has potential. I do like where it's going. I do like the idea of what's going on. The supermoon gamma rays or whatever the hell that they're called. The science in this is not necessarily its strong suit, and I'm not necessarily a meteorologist, so I can't claim for certainty that what they're saying is any valid whatsoever. But enhanced moon rays enabling you to become a werewolf. It's a flimsy premise, but in this universe, I'll allow it. Uh, Mainly because I do like the attacks in here. I do like the Home Alone style confrontations that take place in the house. They're fun enough. They have some exciting moments happen. The main confrontations, yeah, they're a little reminiscent of other films, but they're still action packed enough to where you still get a little bit of enjoyment from them. I do agree. I think the main detriment here is that it really could have been a little bit bigger, and it could have been a lot more global. It could have been a lot more widespread, have like this major scale to it. Maybe the indie nature of it kind of kept it down a little. Maybe that kind of brought it back down and prevented it from being what it could have been with the setup it had. But I'm not necessarily hammering it as much as it is. I am hammering the science and all of the excess explanations that go on in here. A lot of that is kind of flimsy. A lot of it is, I won't say bordering on stupid, but it does just kind of become eye rolling at times, where a lot of the excess explanations and how they explain what's going on, it does get a little tiresome when it could have just been a lot more action packed, a lot more straight to the point if they dropped all that and just concentrated on just giving us werewolves transforming out of nowhere and just attacking random bystanders for no reason, and then realizing, oh crap, we're out of the moonlight, nothing bad's happened. I think that could have been a lot more fun than what we get here. But overall, I don't hate the movie. It is a bit of a disappointment, but I do like it a little bit more than Venom is, I guess. Based on pre-show chats, I may suspect that I'm the highest on this, but even still, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a must-watch. It's you have to go out of your way to see it. This is very firmly a wait till streaming kind of a deal. There's nothing here that really necessarily warrants going to the theater for it. Wait for it to drop sometime soon. I would imagine that this will probably be second week of January. Sorry. I think it'll drop by then, but the fact that there's only been one other werewolf movie this entire year, and it was a film called American Werewolf, which that should tell you exactly how shit that movie is. The fact that this is the second werewolf movie of the year is kind of a blessing, so I'm not necessarily too disappointed in it. I just want more of the creatures. So, the extent of not saying anything else, I enjoyed it just because I like what it presents and I like the kind of style that it has. I do agree with the tropes. It could have been a little bit more expansive. It could have gotten on a larger, grander scale. I'm not necessarily hampering the film for those qualities, but I am going to hamper some of the stupidity in the science, a lot of the contrived setups that kind of just arise from how it plays out. But a bit of a disappointment. Wait till streaming. I can't say that there's better things to do during this time of year. Wait till streaming, I guess. But I guess that's pretty much all for me.
Okay. I think every character in this movie is pretty stupid. All their action, like, to me, it's just it's just 90 minutes of every character doing the dumbest thing, the wrong thing. I guess the thing that progresses peril at every turn. So I actually kind of agree with Venom. I do like the setup. I think right off the bat, because it really kind of jumps into it, like right away. Like there's not like this kind of big prologue that we get before, because we're kind of picking up the timeline where this is a year after the initial event. They don't spend too much time like getting the moviegoer or viewer up to speed. We're like dropped kind of in a crisis mode already. It's about to be the supermoon night, and they went through this before, so we're kind of getting a crash course and like, okay, this is what to expect. From the few people that have seen it, besides us, because I haven't seen a ton of people talk about it, it's been described by a few as like the Purge with werewolves, and I kind of agree in the sense that like this big, huge, grand thing is being set up, and then what it really amounts to is like we get like a handful of werewolves, I guess, out in the public creating carnage, but for the most part, it's like another handful attacking specific houses in the suburbs. Like I don't know what the motivation, why that's even happening to begin with. I don't know why people in their houses are like almost acting like it's normal night. It's like a couple people have fortified their houses, but otherwise you have like a neighbor person that's just chilling in her house like it's another night. Well, I guess I closed my door, so it's all good. Like what? I I don't understand a lot of people's motivations for their actions in this movie. The science, yeah, I agree. You can kind of poke holes in it. I tried to give that charity because it's like whatever. It's just they think they have it under control, but obviously they don't. I will say the bipedal werewolf presentation. I like the way the werewolves look in their final form. But as predicted, the transformations are pretty much all CGI, just exactly what you would expect out of like werewolf or a person transforming a werewolf with computer graphics. Like I won't even say they're like terrible compared to like other movies I've seen, but it's obvious. Like I feel like werewolf transformations are like one thing that like even when the CGI isn't terrible, it's so obvious that like man, just don't even do it. Like I would rather just give us something practical, even if it's like just an arm or a leg or like a side profile. Can you like spare like at least spend some money on like a practical effect for that? But I guess not. So, but yeah, the actual final forms of the werewolves I thought were kind of cool. The little bit of like gore we get is good, I think. That final confrontation, like I don't even understand why that final confrontation happens like that because like I don't know. I guess I can't get into it till spoilers. I agree the neat happy ending is ridiculous, and Venom is correct. It's very comparable to 30 Days a Night. The main difference is in 30 Days a Night, it feels like there's a real sacrifice being made in that idea solution. Where in this one, because of the happy ending, it's like, okay, like I get, like I guess you maybe thought you were gonna be sacrificing, but hey, it turned out okay in anyway, which is it just took the punch off of that conclusion. What else can I say? Yeah, I mean, for the people that described it as the Purge with werewolves, I agree, and that's why I didn't like it all that much because there's just there's just not a lot to go on. I think the first act sets up like a grand scale event, and we get a very small story, and there was just potential for a lot more. I doubt this will turn into a franchise like the Purge franchise. Though this is probably a one and done. I don't see any reason for this to continue. No reason to see it in the theater. Just kind of wait. I would say if you're a werewolf fan or werewolf movie fan in general, check it out. Otherwise, I don't know. There's not a whole lot there. Maybe if you are like an action horror fan, maybe just by the fact that it does take like an action bend to it, maybe you'll like it more than I did. But otherwise, I I say skip it, or at least wait on it. Wait for whoever picks it up, whether it's like Shudder or Netflix. And anything else I can think of at the moment. I don't think so. Like I said, I just felt like there's a lot of dumb decision making by like almost every character in this. Like, you're gonna tell me if you have like a shotgun with limited shells, like your answer is I'm just gonna shoot random holes into random places of the house as if that's going to do anything. Oh man, just that whole total final standoff with the main character in her house. I was like rolling my eyes, like this is ridiculous. And I can get into the kid, but I guess I should save that for spoilers. But yeah, I just think that the stupidity of the characters was a major problem. And like sometimes I try to give stupidity in characters a pass, but I can't in this one because it feels like just about every character is making dumb decisions.
And by the way,
go ahead.
Those dumb decisions aren't actually limited to our protagonists. The werewolves in this movie are kind of stupid too, but I'll get into that later on.
Yeah. And I also like, I guess, like it's established pretty early that the mythology that we know of for werewolves isn't exactly happening in this movie. So I get it, but then it's like, well, what is it that's killing? Is it just shooting them? Because if that's the case, well, you would think with a year's time to prepare, they would have like a better plan. If just shooting them with standard bullets can kill werewolves, and it's like, so we did not come up with a plan this last year for when the next supermoon. Like, how we would go about it? I guess not. But yeah, I'll leave my general thoughts at that. Back to you, Venom.
I think the plan was to warn people and hope that they would stay inside. But what the scientists don't realize is that this is a world filled with trolls. And there's going to be people that no matter how much you tell them, don't go out. There's going to be people who are like, ooh, I want to be a werewolf. And we even do see a couple in the lab in this movie, in the lab scene. A couple of the guys are like excited to become a werewolf. You know what I mean? So in a world where we have that many shitty people, you can't expect everyone to just be like, oh, okay, I'll stay home tonight. I mean, what about the people that have to work that night? Like, is all business suspended for that evening? Like, they don't really get into that in the movie. Yes, there's a curfew. Yes, they tell people they have to stay in, from sundown to sun up the next morning. But, there's always going to be people that don't listen to the rules. The other thing, too, is homeless people. Like, no one even mentions homeless people in this movie. Imagine in Los Angeles, where the homeless population is well over 1 million. Imagine 1 million homeless werewolves turning in Los Angeles. LA would be a graveyard by the end of the night. So that's the kind of shit I was wanting to see. I wanted to see werewolves climbing the Eiffel Tower. I wanted to see werewolves on the London Bridge. I wanted to see them on the Great Wall of China. It's like, yes, I understand that scenes like that sometimes can come off as cliche, but that's the expectation. I mean, this is a big budget theatrical werewolf movie. The tropes are what I expect. And if you're not going to do the tropes, then you got to do something that's original or that's, just genuinely cool and different. You know what I mean? Very kind of like what Longlegs did earlier in the year, where as we're watching the trailers, we think that Nicolas Cage is a serial killer who's going around butchering these people. But then when you watch the movie, you realize it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And that's what I like to see. I like to see different takes on stuff like this. But this werewolf movie, it's not only cliche, it's lame as fuck. And just like I said, it's not that I hated every minute of it, because I agree with Don. Some of the action set pieces are really fun. The neighbor, considering who the neighbor was in life, to actually see him eventually change and become the wolf that he becomes in the film. Like, that's all entertaining. It's fun. But yeah, just expectations that were not delivered. And, and I understand Don's point too about those expectations not bothering him too much, but it's like, if you're not going to give me what I'm expecting, then give me something else. And that's my issue with this movie. It didn't really give us much. And then the scenes that we get are all fucking cliche. It's all scenes that we've seen before. Of course, we get a scene with a child werewolf where our hero has a moral dilemma of, oh, do I kill this werewolf because it's a child? Fuck that. It's a werewolf. Put a fucking bullet in its brain. Stop worrying about the moral dilemma of, oh, this is a child. What the fuck? I just, yeah. The decision making in this movie, the cliche set pieces, the ungodly Disney ending, it just leaves you with a sour taste in your mouth. And I ended up coming home and watching Bad Moon because I was in such a bad mood. It's like, and Bad Moon isn't even one that I consider like an upper echelon werewolf movie, but it just happened to be on, and I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'll watch this because maybe this will wash the bad taste of werewolves out of my mouth, and it kind of did. Despite my issues with the transformation scene in Bad Moon, it's actually a decent little movie. I like a lot of the story elements.
That's right. I always thought that was one of the upper echelon tiers.
I mean, a lot of people do consider it that, but because I'm such, and this is a personal opinion, obviously, this is just what I think, because that transformation is so bad, I can't really put it in an upper tier of werewolf movies. I mean, I wouldn't argue with somebody saying it's a top 10 werewolf movie. That's fine, but like top 3 or top 5, that's where I would start to argue. But again, personal opinions.
My upper tier is like close to 30, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I expect. Like a top 25. Yeah, I mean, putting Bad Moon as a top 25 werewolf movie, I wouldn't argue that at all, because like I said, it's all the non-werewolf elements of Bad Moon makes it so enjoyable. The family, the dog, like there's so many. Yeah, there's so much great stuff in that movie that you're almost willing to forgive the bad CGI werewolf transformation, especially because we only have to see it once. Whereas in this movie, in Werewolves, we have to watch it like a half dozen times. How many times do I have to watch somebody turn into a werewolf with terrible CGI? I don't need it.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway. I will turn it over to my co-host. I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but if there's anything else you guys want to add before we get into this incredibly short walkthrough.
Have at it.
Go ahead.
All right, fuck it. Let's get into it. Our movie opens up with scientists in a lab. They're basically talking about, the movie opens up with, on-screen text and like dialogue. The cold open is basically explaining what happened the previous year. So the previous year, exactly a year earlier, there was something called a supermoon, and the world was so unprepared for this thing that and they even say it in the movie, over 1 billion people around the world turned into werewolves that night. Now, luckily, they don't stay werewolves. Obviously, as soon as the sun comes up, they're back to human, assuming they survive the night. As Mike said, these werewolves aren't particularly hard to kill. It seems like just a well-placed gunshot, shotgun shell shot is enough to put one of these guys down. Obviously, we see some werewolves hit with like mini guns where they're shot like 40 times, and of course, they're going to go down, but these werewolves aren't particularly hard to kill by any stretch. But so, like I said, after we get that introduction, we're then transported to a lab where Lou Diamond Phillips, of all people, is in this movie playing Dr. Aranda. And he basically is the main scientist trying to work on a cure. Now, he's not able to actually come up with a cure necessarily. What he's working on is something called moonshade or moonblock. I forget the exact term. But basically, it's just like sunblock. It's something that you wear on your skin, a lotion that you rub into your skin, or I think it's a spray, actually, in the film. You spray it all over your skin, any part of your skin that, like, you don't have to spray it head to toe. You just have to spray it on the parts of your body that are going to be exposed to moonlight. So, obviously, if you're wearing clothes, you don't have to, like, spray your crotch or your ass or anything. So, blah, blah, blah. And I already know what a lot of you are asking, because I asked the exact same question as they're explaining it in the movie. What about their eyeballs? You can't put sunblock on eyeballs. Well, they actually, much to their credit, actually came up with a solution to that. They actually came up with a nanobite solution. It's basically an eye drop. They put it in your eye, and there's a nanobot technology in the eye drops that protect your eyes from moonlight. So I thought that was kind of cool. So see, the only bit of science in the movie that's actually kind of interesting, because they address our very first, like, it's kind of like when, like in the original Blade, when Deacon Frost put on sunblock and went out into the sun, but his eyes are completely exposed, like he's not wearing sunglasses. It's like, oh, come on, what the fuck, dude? But at least this movie addressed it, so good on them. So anyway, as expected, they have an isolated lab that has a retractable roof. They've got 4 volunteers. One of the volunteers is actually one of the doctors that works right there at the facility. The other 3 are just, it seems like they're just random people that they, recruited from applications or whatever. 2 of them, both men, are actually very excited to become werewolves. Like, they're looking forward to it, to the point that after they retracted the roof and it looked like the solution was working, one of them was actually disappointed. He was like, oh, God damn it. Like, he was really looking forward to turning into a werewolf. But then, as it turns out, about an hour after they retracted the roof, our test subjects start to turn into werewolves. So obviously the moon spray, moon shade, moon block, whatever the name of the drug is that they had, only lasts an hour. So they now know that they have an hour of protection from the moon with this spray before they have to reapply it. They can reapply it. I don't know. They don't do any kind of scientific experiment to figure out if they can reapply it. They just kind of assume that they do, that you can, and apparently you can, because we see our 2 main characters reapply it. So, like I said, after an hour, our test subjects turn into werewolves. They start a giant fucking just massacre right there at the lab. Eventually, one of them is able to get out of their restraints, out of their cage, and that one goes and releases the other 3, and then the 4 werewolves just basically start going on a rampage. And obviously, we see people in hazmat suits, and I think we do see one of those people get their hazmat helmet ripped off of them, and then they turn into a werewolf because, like I said, the retractable roof is open. They try to close the retractable roof. Oh, man, I can't speak today. I'm so sorry. The retractable roof. They try to close it, but of course it's a horror movie, so it jams. It doesn't close all the way. And eventually the 4 werewolves actually escape the lab. They actually just leave the lab and start going about their, rampage. But obviously, as I said earlier, there's always going to be people that don't listen, who just, fuck around. Now, I haven't even introduced our main characters, and basically our main character is Wesley. He's played by Frank Grillo, who MCU fans will remember as Crossbones from the Captain America movies and from Avengers Endgame. So if you remember Crossbones, that is Frank Grillo. He's been in other stuff too, but the MCU stuff's probably the most popular stuff that he's done. So, like I said, he plays Wesley. He has taken charge of protecting his brother's family, his brother's wife and daughter, because a year earlier, during the first supermoon, Wesley's brother was killed. He was a first responder responding to emergency calls, and obviously ended up getting killed. There's a newspaper clip in the movie talking about the thousands of first responders that died that night because they were answering emergency calls and then getting attacked by werewolves when they went out there, or turning into werewolves themselves, because like I said, nobody was aware of what the supermoon was during year 1. So Frank is protecting Amy and her, I think her daughter's name is Emma? I think it's Emma. But basically, Frank's sister-in-law and niece-in-law, or niece, basically. So he's taken it upon himself to protect these 2. He's not being inappropriate, trying to hit on her or anything. He's actually acting like a good guy, just trying to protect them. He sets up a defensive perimeter around their house with an electric fence, armed with bear mace, cans of bear mace that can be remotely activated. Frank, or should I say Wesley, is actually, a pretty solid individual. Now, why does he know all this stuff? Because he is in the military. And So he's got his military training, but he's also a scientist. He's also the lead scientist. Lou Diamond Phillips is the lead scientist, but he's one of the lead lab guys there working on this deterrent on the Moonshade. Eventually, Lou Diamond Phillips also ends up turning into a werewolf, which I don't think it's the first time he's turned into a werewolf, right? Haven't we seen him turn into a werewolf in another movie? Maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but anyway, unfortunately, he ends up turning into a werewolf, and we never really see what happens to him after that. It's almost like it's assumed that when these people turn into werewolves that, somebody is going to defend themselves and end up shooting them and killing them. Or I was thinking maybe with that many werewolves in the world, we don't get to see one werewolf like altercation. Like, yes, there's the final confrontation at the end, but that's a personal thing. Like, I was expecting to see just random street fights where werewolves would just start slapping at each other and shit. But no, like I said, at no point in this movie do we see more than 5 or 6 werewolves on screen at any given time. And that's not an exaggeration, folks. Literally 5 or 6 is the most we see. There's a scene in this movie where we've got some country yahoos who have like an arsenal of their own, and they basically volunteered to go out that evening. They're covered from head to toe, obviously, so they don't get any moonlight on them. And they've got like a 50 caliber machine gun on the back of one of their trucks. They've got like M16 rifles, like they're armed to the teeth. But of course, as always, eventually even they get overrun by werewolves, but we never get to really see a lot of werewolves. Like, I was expecting like dozens of them to show up here to take out these, yahoos, but no. They literally just get taken out by like a couple of werewolves that just happen to attack them from behind instead of, being stupid. And again, I talked earlier about some of the werewolves in this movie. These are the lamest werewolves ever. Like, you would expect a werewolf, when a human being turns into a werewolf, you would expect their sense of scent to be heightened, their sense of sight, their sense of sound. Like, they literally have become animals, and all of their senses you would think would be heightened. But no, there's a scene in this movie where Wesley and one of the other lab people are able to sneak past a group of werewolves, and I'm just sitting there like, are you fucking joking? Like, do they not smell you? Like, it just doesn't, like I said, they threw logic out the window with this movie and just kind of were hoping that we didn't think about it too hard. But unfortunately, they didn't realize that we would be there. So, let's see. Obviously, once the shit hits the fan, Wesley wants to get back. There was one more character that I needed to introduce, and that is Cody. Cody is the neighbor. He lives next to Amy and her daughter. And Wesley doesn't live there, by the way. Wesley lives on base, at the military base. But like I said, he comes out here to make sure that these two are safe because he feels obligated because it's his brother's family who has passed away. So eventually Wesley, basically after the shit hits the fan at the lab and the lab is just completely destroyed, or, it's completely compromised, Wesley makes the decision to go back to Amy's house. So it kind of turns into Judgment Night with werewolves, or the Warriors. Actually, better example, the Warriors with werewolves, where our gang of warriors are trying to get back to their home in Coney Island, but they're constantly being attacked by rival gangs on the way home. Pretty much the same thing here. As Wesley is trying to get back to his quote unquote family's house, they keep getting attacked by different factions of werewolves. So Cody, the neighbor, is basically, he's like a doomsday prepper type guy. He is also former military, but whereas Wesley is more even keel and not too, angry, Cody is like one of those angry military vets, like an ex-Marine. He's an ex-Marine that just, he's all excited about that, about the supermoon night, because he is also armed to the teeth and he's ready. But like Mike said earlier, he doesn't really take any precautions to try to protect his house, like to the point that he leaves his fucking blinds open. Like, his blinds are completely open. That's the other thing that really bothered me about the people in this movie. Why does everybody have their lights on? Like, you do understand that werewolves have eyes, right? If they see lights on in a house, they're probably going to try to attack it. How about you turn your fucking lights off for 12 hours and then the werewolves have no reason to try to, get into your house. But no, fuck it. And even Amy, specifically our main protagonist, has every fucking light in the house on. Not one room or a couple of lights. Every fucking light in the house is turned on like it's the fucking 4th of July. I'm like, are you trying to advertise that you have a daughter in there and for the werewolves to come in and get a free meal? Like, I just don't understand your mentality. So yeah, Mike had a valid point about the stupid characters in this movie and not doing what you think would be logical to do in this situation. Like no one's hiding in their basement. Like I would literally shut off everything in the top of my house, lock my family into the basement, hoping that there's no other way in or out of the basement. And then just hoping that the werewolves leave your house alone because there'll be no sound, no light coming from it. But again, terrible decision. So, like I said, Cody, the gung-ho ex-Marine, eventually his house does get bombarded by werewolves. He is overtaken, and he ends up turning into a werewolf. And what's funny is that before the sun went down, he put on a flak jacket that says Wolf Killer on it. And then after he transforms, he is now a werewolf wearing a flak jacket that says Wolf Killer on it, which I thought was mildly funny, just mildly. But I got a chuckle out of it the first time that we see him. He also puts face paint on, that kind of war paint, if you will, that some Marines will put on before they go to battle. So after he transforms, we still see that paint on his face. So it's real easy to tell who Cody is. Now, because Cody is the neighbor, and one thing that I forgot to mention, it does seem like these werewolves do keep at least a little bit of their human memory. Like they're not 100% just completely wild and completely disassociated from their human self. They actually do have very minimal memory retention, to the point that Cody knows that Amy and her daughter are in the house next to his, and he tries to basically get in there. Like I said, the fence is electric, so he gets shocked the first time he touches the fence. Then he ends up getting bear mace sprayed into his eyes at one point, and then that's when he calls for backup. He does his big howl, and I'm expecting, like I said, a dozen or 2 dozen werewolves to show up to make quick work of this house, but no, 4 show up. That's it. So now Cody has, including himself, he's got a gang of like 5 werewolves all trying to get into this house. Now, while Wesley is having his little adventures getting back to the house, Amy is defending the house from Cody and his little the other werewolves that came to his call. Mike alluded earlier to how Amy literally has a shotgun with limited rounds and she's shooting at nothing. She literally, like, if one of the werewolves makes a sound outside the house at a certain spot at the wall, she'll fucking shoot at the wall. Which is, that's a wasted shell. And then twice throughout the movie, she ends up shooting through her roof and allowing fucking moonlight into her house. So after she runs out of shells, she now has 2 holes in her ceiling that are allowing moonlight into the house. I'm like, this woman just did not think this through at all, did she? And this is the wife of a fucking ex-Marine. Like, you would think that she might have learned something from her husband, but no, she's just willy-nilly wasting her shells and allowing moonlight to get into her house. And by allowing that moonlight to get into her house, wolves eventually break those holes open and get into her house. And yeah, we end up getting the wolves breaking into her house, which sounds like a really cool horror set piece, but like I said, it ends up coming off more like an action set piece. I feel like the only horror set piece in this movie is when the blonde girl dies, the neighbor on the other side of Amy's house, the cute blonde girl, the young girl. When she is stalked by the werewolves in her house, that scene is legitimately horror. because you'll see like silhouettes of the wolves walking around her house. At one point, the camera pans past her. There's no wolf there. And when the camera pans back, there's the shadow of a wolf standing right behind her. So
Yeah,
in all honesty,
it's a cool scene. But then, like, when you think about it, it's like, did she not lock her doors? Did they just like walk in? Because like, how the hell they even get in there like that?
And don't forget, I mean, we live in a world of conspiracy theorists, so there's probably people in this world who literally don't believe that a supermoon is coming, even though it's already happened once. I mean, hey, we all lived through the COVID pandemic, and we all lived through half of Americans saying that it was a hoax and that the vaccine is garbage, bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I wish they would have thrown a scene like that in this movie where we had one person who was like, shut up, there's no such thing as werewolves, or, whatever happened the year before it was a military exercise. It had nothing to do with the moon. Like, where were the conspiracy theorists in this world? Nowhere to be found. So, yeah, that was disappointing. So anyway, as expected, Wesley does eventually get back home after, having multiple adventures and also after, like I mentioned earlier, having that cliche interaction with the child werewolf. There was when they broke into a pharmacy to try to get some medical supplies, they ran into a little girl werewolf. And of course he has that moral dilemma of, do I shoot her or do I not? And it's like, the girl is very obviously homeless. Like, she's dressed, like she actually still has clothes on. Like, I don't know what it is about kids turning into werewolves in this movie, but they don't go full wolf like the adults do. Like, it's almost like just part of her face changed and her hands and everything, because she still has her little girl nightgown on, and she's all dirty and disheveled. So you could tell that she's probably homeless, which is why she was out, when they were told not to. But yeah, like I said, that cliche scene of, do I shoot her? Do I not shoot her? Which I can't fucking stand. It's like, do you not have a sense of self-preservation? What are you going to let this little girl werewolf kill you because you can't bring yourself to pull the trigger? And this is an ex-Marine, an ex-fucking Marine, or no, current Marine. I should shut up. He's not even an ex-Marine. He's a current fucking Marine. And he can't bring himself to, do what needs to be done. So yeah, just lame ass movie with no teeth, like I said earlier. Anyway, point is, Wesley eventually does get back home. He starts helping Amy try to thwart the attack from Cody and the other werewolves that are around. Eventually, they run out of shotgun shells. Wesley himself doesn't have any more firearms, no ammo. He pretty much went through it all getting back to this house. And then, of course, he makes the decision that Josh Hartnett made at the end of 30 Days of Night. He decides to walk into the moonlight from one of the holes that Amy created with her ridiculous shotgun shooting. And which I don't understand. It's like, why would you think, without really knowing, why would you think that you're going to retain enough memory to want to attack Cody? I was expecting him to turn into a werewolf and then just run off into the night. Not even help. Just be like, fuck this. You know what I mean? But no, he turns into a werewolf. He walks outside the house. He confronts Cody. They have their little one-on-one battle. They're, which is laughable, by the way. The fight is short as hell. It's almost as short as the final battle at the end of The Killing Tree, which is an episode you guys will hear later on. But anyway, it's a very short final fight, and all that really happens is Wesley ends up ripping Cody's head off. And not even in a cool scene, in a cool way. It's so matter of fact, where the Wesley wolf just walks up to the Cody wolf, just grabs his head and just rips it off his shoulders. It's like, well, okay, I guess that's one way to end the movie. And then, as expected, Wesley then turns back at Amy and goes into the house. And yes, it seems like he's about to attack her. She's trying to talk to him, showing pictures of the family, saying, look, this is your brother, my husband. Don't you remember? You swore to protect us, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you get another moral dilemma where the wolf is like, he doesn't know what to do. But then eventually, yes, he basically changes the expression on his face, on his wolfy face. And it's very apparent that he's going to attack Amy. Now, earlier in the film, Wesley gave Amy a watch that had an alarm set on it that would go off at sunrise. And as Cody is about to attack her, the alarm goes off, but she's in her house with all the windows blocked. And apparently in this world, the moon going away and the sun rising isn't enough to change these werewolves back to human. They have to actually be touched by sunlight. So it's like, does that mean that there's werewolves all year, like in the subways or the underground, or like the logic of this movie is so fucking stupid. So anyway, like I said, the alarm goes off on her watch. But Wesley doesn't change back. She realizes that the windows are all blocked so that no light's coming out. So she takes her final shotgun shell. She ended up finding one more on the floor as she was trying to escape from Wesley's attack. She takes the shotgun. She's got it pointed right at Wesley's face. And, most expectation is that she's going to pull the trigger and kill Wesley right before he could have turned back to a human. But what she ends up doing is shooting the window and shooting the boards that are blocking up the window. So she shoots the window, which creates a hole in the boards. Sunlight then floods into the room. And as soon as the sunlight touches Wesley, he instantly turns back into a human. And, oh, by the way, what was up with the decision of this movie showing Wesley's chiseled ass body at the very end? Like, what was that for? Was that just beefcake for the ladies? Like that's the kind of thing that you would expect to see earlier in the movie to kind of show that, yeah, Wesley's a tough guy, he's a tough Marine. Like all through the movie, we're thinking he's just like a Marine scientist. And then literally the final shot of the movie is just him standing there looking like a fucking chiseled Adonis after transforming back to a werewolf. He reaches his hand down to help Amy up. The camera fades to black, and that's the fucking end of our movie, my friends. They tried to give us a happy ending in a goddamn werewolf movie, and I'm just so pissed off about it. And yes, I mean, this is the kind of story that if this movie was executed well, this could have turned into a franchise. They could have done year 3 for the sequel, year 4. I mean, just keep changing the attempts at curing it. Different scientists, different, military staff. Just this could have turned into maybe not a great franchise, but at least a passable franchise. But with this entry, I don't think we're going to see another one. I mean, it's sitting on a 5.4 right now on IMDb, and that's incredibly generous. Like, I don't think I would give it a score that high just because of how much I hated the second half of the film. But yeah, there it is, folks. Werewolves 2024. If you make the decision to go see it in theaters, go, at your own risk. Realize that you'd have to be like someone who absolutely adores werewolf movies to want, like, it would have to be like one of your favorite subgenres of horror for me to say, yes, you should go see it in the theater. Because ultimately, there's not really a lot of redeeming qualities to this movie worth seeing it in the theater. The cinematography is okay. The editing's okay. The score is okay. Like, nothing is exceptional about this movie. So that's why I say I can't really recommend it. I can't recommend it. I would say once it hits streaming, if you're bored and you want to add some numbers to your 2024 watch list, go ahead and check it out. I mean, it's a short movie. It's only 93 minutes, which is nice. That's about the only redeeming quality the movie has is its runtime. But otherwise, yeah, like I can't even compliment the child actor in this movie. Like, she's just kind of there. Like, she doesn't really do much of anything. She's just more of a decoration. So, I can't even really praise her. The mom is okay. Amy, played by Katrina Law. She's passable, but it's not like she's not Linda Hamilton from Terminator by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know. Like I said, the movie, it's a collection of expectations that weren't fulfilled, unfulfilled expectations. And that's really too bad. So that's all I got for Werewolves, folks. Back to Mike.
Okay. I don't really have anything to add, so I'm just ending it there. What do you guys have anything new for people to listen to, Venom?
Yes, we actually do have a new episode of Creature Comforts. That is Creature Comforts episode number 33. It's in the can. I'm in the process of editing that right now, and we decided to go back to the formula that we did in year one of Creature Comforts and do a Christmas themed creature feature for December, and we decided to watch The Killing Tree from 2022. Yes, it's only a couple of years old, which is kind of rare for us to do something that new on the show, but it's Christmas. We just kind of threw the episode together. We picked the movie kind of on a whim, just because it was something that I had never seen before. I think Derek said he had never seen it before, so it was a first time watch for a couple of us, and we decided to, do that one. I'm not gonna give any spoilers on what we thought of the movie, though I did make a comment earlier in this episode that might give away what we thought of that movie. But yeah, look out for episode 33 of No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. It should be available, I'd say, next week sometime, maybe like middle of next week. I'll be done with it and I'll have it submitted and everything else. It will definitely be out before Christmas, no doubt about it. So check that out. And then I do have a guest spot with the Cut to the Chase. Dan and Lacey invited me to come on their 12 Days of Chasemas series of episodes, and I will be talking about the original Tales from the Crypt episode number 2, All Through the House, which is, of course, the Christmas episode with Larry Drake as the crazy Santa stalking the woman and her daughter in her house. So that should be a fun and quick episode, since it's not a full-length feature. I would imagine that episode will be a quickie, and look out for that one in the coming weeks. And that's pretty much all I have for you. We haven't done a main show in a little bit. Haven't done a Crystal Lake gift shop in a little bit, and that's pretty much all I have to report as far as guest spots. I have no idea what's going on with my podcast Under the Stairs guest spot. I have not heard from Duncan in over 2 months. He hasn't even chimed in on the chat that he created for this series of episodes, so hopefully it's still happening, but, if it doesn't, I can only assume that Duncan was too busy to go ahead and finish the horror head-to-head series that he is doing. So that's pretty much it from my end. Back to Mike.
All right, Don, how about you?
Creature Comforts, the new episode, The Killing Tree. It's kind of my suggestion, only because I wanted to do something that wasn't a creature feature relating to Krampus. That's literally about as much as deep as the selection process went. Again, we'll leave all of the thoughts to that when episode comes out. But other than that, that's pretty much all for me on my end.
Yay.
Okay. Yeah, nothing else for me. As far as fresh cuts goes, I think what we're gonna maybe look to do one more episode, take a couple weeks break, and then do Nosferatu for the last.
I would say it's going to end up being a 1 week break, just to kind of explain my thinking, folks. Because we are a weekly podcast, I like to make sure that we do at least 50 episodes every year. Obviously, in a perfect world, we would do 52 episodes in a year. But obviously, there's sickness. I got COVID earlier this year for the 3rd time, so I know we missed a week. As of right now, this is episode 48 for the year. We're obviously doing Nosferatu at the end of the year. That'll be 49. So hopefully, yes, if we can find a movie that we can do next week. I'm not against ending it for the next 2 weeks and just taking the 2 weeks off and doing the watches. But like I said, it's a weird arbitrary number that I have in my head. I like to do at least 50 episodes just to know that we had a productive year and we did as many episodes as we possibly could. So if we can find a movie that warrants doing an episode next week, we'll go ahead and do that. But if you don't hear from us over the next couple of weeks, then you can just assume that we didn't find a movie that we wanted to talk about in the 3rd week of December, and look out for our Nosferatu episode dropping right around the new year. Obviously, the movie opens on Christmas Day. we'll get together sometime the following weekend after it opens, and hopefully the episode will be out by the new year. But if not, it'll be out right after the new year. So, and then expect our top 10 episode to be our first episode of 2025, just like it was this year. It was our first episode of 2024. So that's pretty much it from my end, folks.
Okay, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, Nosferatu comes out on Christmas. I probably will have, because Christmas is on a Wednesday, I'll probably have that Wednesday through Sunday off, so I can probably, it's depending on what everyone else is doing for the holiday, I'll probably be able to do it that weekend if everyone else is available, but we can figure that out at that time. We still got a few weeks until then. And then, yeah, top 10 coming in hot, so gonna be doing some cramming. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's it. So with that said, we might be back in a week. I mean, the thing is, there are 2024 movies still out there that we haven't discussed that we could. It's not like we're in any shortage, but it's like, do we really want to cover something crappy just to say we did it? So
Yeah.
We'll try to seek out something that's like worthwhile to discuss. And when I say that, I mean like leading up to Nosferatu, because I have a feeling that will be plenty discussion worthy. But yeah. But until then, thanks everyone for listening to almost another whole year of Fresh Cuts. We'll be back soon with the next episode. Let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
I wonder if you could use sunblock to block out the moon rays.
Maybe. Peace.